This is an addition to a series of mine called Facts, Strats, Glitches. It also marks the beginning of a trilogy series, that trilogy series being a 1000 sub special. Also, if you want some more epic detail videos, then there's some like Rob's Details videos, A+Start Son of a Glitch episode, Mr. Saints Godzilla's Best Glitches video, and more linked below in the description. They're all good, and I tried not to rehash anything from there, so if you want to watch them, you'll learn even more stuff. A well-known thing in GTA IV is the destruction with walls, fences, lampposts, all that, which in of itself is cool, but there's also some things you may have not noticed. Things such as trash cans, bins, even the back of this Packard railing thing all get fucked up from destruction. You can also pop tires if you're doing a burnout for too long. Also, interiors get filled with smoke the more guns are shot within them, which is a pretty well-known thing, but I think it should be appreciated more. People may not realize it that much, but the console and PC versions of GTA V have a lot of differences. For example, the Annihilator on PC does 1000 damage per shot for fucking some reason, and it also fires a lot faster. Another difference with the Annihilator is when you fly in hood camera with a keyboard and mouse, it creates a crosshair. Meanwhile, if you use a controller, it completely removes that. Another weird difference is that if you use a keyboard to pilot, your movement is a lot more restricted compared to controller users. Using Zolika Trainer, we can remove this limitation, but the only reason why this actually works is because it's essentially imitating controller movement, as if it was pulling the analog stick all the way down when you press a key. You can tell it's doing this because the crosshair is removed, and if you move your camera with your mouse, it's a lot smoother than normal, like a controller. Another difference is during the multiplayer race lobby screen, on PC the vehicles are 3D, while on console they're just pictures. Another thing you can notice is that the UI for the lobby screen is actually different. I imagine this is just because of the chat though. On PC, the assault rifles have a firing delay. On console, they do not, thus created the meta of turbo controllers, which if you don't know are basically rapid fire controllers. But on PC, the MP5 and Uzi do exist, and another difference between PC and console is the PC version doesn't have any spread at all. So on console, the PV meta is assault rifles, meanwhile on PC, it's just SMGs. There's way more differences than this, but by far the biggest change is the multiplayer clothing. If you want a comparison, feel free to watch GTA Series' video on the subject. The timestamp for the clothing is around 440. Where you shoot people dictates how much damage you'll do. The most obvious one is headshots, but areas such as the legs versus the shoulders do exist. Something I've mentioned before, but you can tell if someone has armor if you shoot their chest and they have this effect. You can also see when I headshot it spurts more blood out compared to when I shoot the leg, so I guess this is an indication for how much damage you'll do. The way weapons pick up in the multiplayer is incredibly annoying, but it's also important to know. The way it works is basically like this. If you pick up an assault rifle while having that same assault rifle in your inventory, it'll always switch to that weapon you're holding to that assault rifle. Thus, if you're fighting someone, you're basically fucked if you pick it up. The second prioritized weapon for this is the SMG, for some reason. If you don't have that assault rifle, then it won't change to it if you're aiming. If you are just walking around, you will switch to it automatically. In general, you can completely ignore cops. This of course depends on how many stars you have though. Having more stars means better accuracy and spookier shit like SWAT and FIB. Also, if you shoot a cop car while you're on foot, no matter the distance away from you, they'll stop and get out. Sometimes they also just run away after, or simply despawn. This is best used against SWAT trucks with a sniper. You can shoot through wheels. This is especially useful for cops taking cover behind them. Fire in this game is pretty broken. Using Molotovs, you can get loads of pigeons on the map, even when it's not close to them. The Molotovs also last insanely long against people, thus in multiplayer, if you throw a Molotov at someone who isn't near water, they're almost guaranteed to die. This is also not to mention that if you throw a single Molotov at a vehicle, it's almost guaranteed to be destroyed. When vehicles are on fire, they won't blow up from impact unless you jump out. When you drive by with some weapons such as the MP5 or Uzi, it's slower than when you're on foot. Speaking of drive-bying, keep in mind what vehicle you drive. Vehicles such as the Ballista, Ambulance, and Infernus are perfect. If you don't know why the Ballista would be good, it's because there's collision on the back window. The Contender, or B109, also has this issue, but only if you have one of the extras with the vehicle. Not many people realize it, but since you can shoot through the interiors of vehicles, at least for the most part, vehicles such as the SWAT truck and ambulance you can shoot the driver with. This is especially useful for the PvE mode, Bomb to Base 2. Another thing you can do, which is actually pretty tricky, is shoot the passengers out. You can enter vehicles to get certain buffs. For a few examples, the SWAT truck gives armor, the police cars give a shotgun, which for some reason isn't the shotgun that the cops actually use, and the ambulance gives health. If your vehicle is in the air, you can rotate it with Control and Shift, or just analog stick up and down. You can also use emergency handbrake and WAS and D, or the analog stick at the same time to rotate it around. There's a lot of little vehicle control stuff like this in the game. For another example, if you lean in with the bike, you can take more immediate turns, though it's kind of slidey with that. I'd use this if you want to slow down a lot faster than normal, or to turn your bike so you don't fall off so often. There's tons of movement techniques in GTA 4. For example, there's a lot of ways to reduce animation smoothing when moving around. The best example is when you're aiming a weapon, it can be easier to move around. And the best way to use this is to hold the look back key and aim. You'll turn around immediately. Another way to limit animation smoothing is to basically spam left click and right click whenever you're switching or picking up a weapon. It can make you do some weird ass shit like this, but it's actually controllable. Whenever you're trying to jump over things, the end height to when you actually hit the thing you're trying to jump over matters. For example, this wall in Bohan is one of the best examples. To do this, simply time your jump so your torso is a bit higher than the object that you're trying to jump over, and you'll use the faster jump animation.
You all right, cousin? Yeah. Don't make me kill you.
And just like that, you can skip the entire dart and chase. You can skip a ton of chases in GTA IV, my favorite being this Darden one since that's easily the worst chase in my opinion, but here's a few more of my favorites.
I need you! It's closing time! Get your coat! I got in my sights! Hey, go back, alright?
The How to Drive one you may not understand at first, just shoot near the door to spook the guy out, then get near his van and spam the enter vehicle button. As a last general fact, help messages are different between nighttime and daytime. During the day, they have a black background, during the night, they don't. Now I'll touch on a few interesting bugs in the game. This warehouse in Alderney has a buggy top window when you ragdoll. This can happen with a few other things in this game, but this is by far my favorite example. You can enter this container just by jumping over this railing. Barrels with fire in them won't have this fire removed even when they're in the ocean. Some bridge things like this for some reason have really weird effects. And that's it, roughly 40 facts, strats, and glitches. Hopefully you learned something new. I still have other episodes in the series if you want to check them out.